Welcome to Pitch In for Baseball and Softball's Ask Zack Webcast Q&A. I'm Kirsten Karbach, and I'm pleased to be joined by YouTube star and Pitch In for Baseball and Softball partner, Zack Hample. Zack, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And how are things going? What are you up to without baseball games going on?
Great to be with you, and I am actually staying very busy with baseball stuff. I'm still putting out weekly YouTube videos, so that takes a lot of time. And just the sheer number of emails and social media comments. I'm posting on TikTok every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, Insta, Twitter, just still a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I already have people contacting me, trying to set up plans to go to games, management companies that want to work with me, other brands that want to do sponsorships. And there's so many things in the works right now that I'm hardly even missing baseball, as weird as that sounds. But of course, I miss being out there actually at games and catching balls and running around doing my thing.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get into some fan questions today that have been submitted on our social media channels over the last couple of days. But first, for those who don't know, can you share with us a little bit about your background and involvement with Pitch In for Baseball and Softball?
Yeah, before the 2009 season got started, I had this idea that I just really wanted to do something with my collection. And I guess you could say my notoriety, which at the time was growing. I had just had my second book published a couple years prior to that. And I wanted to take all that attention and give something back to the baseball world. And that's when I somehow, and I forget how, stumbled upon Pitch In for Baseball. And I pitched my idea to them, and they were just like, yeah, sounds great, do it. And I'm like, wait, that's it? You don't need me to sign contracts, you don't need to vet me, this and that, and put something in writing? And you guys were like, nope, sounds great, like, let us know what you need. And I just loved that yes approach to doing things. But over the years, including with the help of some other organizations and companies, the Yankees themselves, I've raised over $200,000 for Pitch In for Baseball and softball. So it's just, what a feeling to be out there doing my thing, having fun, running around, and be able to help kids play ball at the same time.
I would definitely appreciate your ongoing partnership and support over the years. And well, let's get right to it. Let's jump into some fan questions that we've received over our social media channels the last couple of days. And let's go ahead and start with one from Cody. He asked, what is your favorite thing about being a YouTuber?
Cody, good question. I guess my favorite thing is that I've always felt this need to, almost a compulsion, to document things and share things. So whether it was just show and tell at school when I was 7 years old, bringing in my rubber band ball or whatever, to keeping a journal obsessively for many, many years throughout college and beyond, just to writing a blog on mlblogs.com back in the day. I've just always wanted to take what I do, share it with people, bring them along for the ride. I feel like I am somewhat of a natural born performer. And of course, a lot of people end up acting or being musicians or performance artists in various ways. And for me, this satisfies all those urges and desires to really put myself out there and connect with folks.
A. Smith 2 asked, if you didn't live in New York City, where else would you like to live?
Wow. It's hard to imagine living anywhere else because I was born here. I love it. But I feel like I'd have to be somewhere with Major League Baseball. My favorite stadium is Camden Yards in Baltimore, but I'm not sure if I would necessarily want to live in Baltimore. No offense to Baltimore, but just being real here. Although I do love it when I go down there. Maybe California. San Diego is just gorgeous. You got the Padres right there, Dodgers and Angels not too far away. I love the beach, though I burn a little bit easily, so I'd have to buy tubs of sunblock. I don't know, maybe I'd take up surfing and head out to the West Coast.
Ben asks, who's your favorite Canadian baseball player?
Ooh, so many good ones to choose from. I'm going to go with the guy who has a .421 career on-base percentage. That would be Joey Votto. He's got kind of a quirky, weird demeanor and has rubbed some people the wrong way. But I think if you get to know him, not that I know him personally, but I've really paid attention to a lot of his interviews, and I think he's actually a cool guy who's kind of misunderstood. And just the way he plays the game, he's tailing off a little bit. And of course, this delay, this whole postponement to the season could really put a dent in everybody's numbers. But I feel like he is a future Hall of Famer, or certainly like right on the cusp. If baseball comes back soon and he picks things back up, he's truly one of the great hitters of this generation. And I caught one of his home runs during a game on the fly in Cincinnati last year, I think it was. All the days, weeks, months, and years are all blending together at this point. But, you know, I loved watching him play for so long. Kind of a cool, weird guy. And then to catch one of his home runs. And I got a wristband from him in Washington, D.C. years ago at Nationals Park, tossed up on the roof of the dugout, I think after the game or maybe after BP. And I wear that wristband every time I see the Reds play. So that's just kind of my thing. Joey Votto, he's my dude.
All right, we'll switch gears a little bit. We got a couple of food-related questions for you. Tal1NJP wants to know thin crust or deep dish. What are you going with?
I'm going with both. How about that? Which might make some people scratch their heads. It's like if you live in New York, you cannot like the Mets and the Yankees. So I'm sure that there are some pizza purists out there that are like, bro, you can't like both thin crust and deep dish. But, you know, one of the highlights of every trip to Chicago is getting deep dish pizza. And there's a friend that I stay with every time out there, and she just knows it's a ritual. We do it. We'll go out, we'll get it, we'll order it, we'll keep it in the fridge every meal sometimes. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, I'm eating deep dish. It's not healthy, but I love it. And of course, being a native New Yorker, I got to stand behind my own hometown's pizza as well. So all pizza matters.
All right. Now, Force20 asks, if you weren't a ball hawk and you could have only one job in baseball apart from being a player, what would it be?
Wow. I got to think about this, but we don't want to have dead air here on YouTube. So I wonder if I could, I mean, does owner count as a job?
I think it does. If you want to be an owner of a baseball team.
I would love to own a team. Maybe that's too obvious. I think, and you know, another obvious one would be like, oh, I want to be on TV talking about it. How about stadium architect? Then I could design the fantasy ballpark that I know would be just amazing for everybody. So that's my like third tier answer. If we're taking away like owner and TV guy, stadium architect.
Yeah, that one's definitely outside the box. Robbie asks, you've gotten over 11,000 baseballs now. What's your favorite 1,000th ball that you've earned?
Like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, etc.
Yes.
Oh, man. I would probably say, I'd probably go with number 1,000, actually. 10,000 was huge. Obviously, that was like my goal for such a long time. And anytime you add a digit, you know, from 4 digits to 5, but I guess I'll make my answer from 3 digits to 4. My first goal was to catch one ball, and I went to games for 6 years before I got a single baseball. And then I really got the hang of it, and I was able to go to games by myself in New York City, riding the subway to Shea and Yankee Stadium. As long as I woke up for school the next day and got my homework done, my parents were like, hey, you know, go do your thing since you want to do it so much. So I started to catch a lot of balls in the 1992 season, and I made my lifetime goal to catch 100 balls. I ended up getting more than 100 just that year alone. I changed my lifetime goal to 1,000. And I mentioned it to some people at school, and everybody laughed at me and made fun of me, which was nothing new because I got made fun of for basically everything. So it took about 4 years of going to games regularly, and I finally got that 1,000th ball at Shea Stadium, 1996. Pedro Borbon Jr., a pitcher on the Braves, threw it, had my Braves hat on. I asked him in Spanish for it. You know, there was no BP that day, so I was focusing on toss-ups. I was using all the strategies way back then. And I had a reporter with me, like a freelance guy who wrote an article which ended up in Inside Sports magazine. And that was like the first thing that got me a little bit of notoriety. I ended up doing a radio interview after that, and then Men's Health magazine contacted me and had me contribute.
Well, you mentioned San Diego earlier. Lorenzo asked, where in Petco Park is the best place to position yourself to catch baseballs? And also, where's the best place to sit for the game?
At Petco. It used to be, well, they've changed that stadium a bunch over the years. I loved that area out in right center field, previously known as the beach. It was basically a gigantic glorified sandbox. So much fun, basically just standing room out there. Batting practice could get pretty rowdy with people thrashing around in the sand, but it was fun. I loved the second deck out in left field, but then they put a whole row of sort of elevated stools and counter space. So now there's not room in the walkway to go back and forth. So at this point, I'd probably go with the walkway deep in straightaway right field. If you can get down right behind the right field wall, what is it called? It's like the home run porch, or it's like the T-Mobile home run zone, or, you know, it always gets rebranded, but it's basically a very wide walkway directly behind the outfield wall. That's really the best spot, but those tickets are sold to groups usually, and it's very hard to score an individual ticket there. If I can, that's definitely where I want to be, but just from a general standpoint, about, 20 feet, 30 feet behind that walkway, up above the seats, and then there's a walkway behind that. Anyone who hits a 400-foot home run, you have a lot of room to run back there.
All right, we've got a couple more for you here. Carson says, hey, Zach, do you have any plans for the balls you're collecting? He says, you will run out of room someday, right?
Yes and no. I mean, I suppose I could just build a new bed out of baseballs, although then I'll get made fun of for sleeping with my baseballs. So maybe that's a bad idea. But my dad, way back in the day, my dad was born in 1926. When he was 13 years old, so 1939, he was a bat boy for a very low-level minor league team, which coincidentally had a future Hall of Famer on it, Warren Spahn. So my dad told me that they used to give him all the old baseballs, and he had dozens of them, he said, maybe even hundreds. And I'm like, well, cool, where are they? Let's, look at them and play with them. And he's like, well, I didn't save them. I didn't know that I was going to have a baseball obsessed kid someday. So I vow to not make that same mistake. I would love to have kids. I hope that happens someday. And if I do, with my luck, they'll probably end up hating baseball, but got to save the baseballs at least long enough for them to embrace or reject. That's up to them, but definitely not getting rid of the vast majority that I've still kept to this point.
All right, and last one from Aiden. What's your favorite baseball memory ever?
Whoa.
That's a tough one.
Wow, there's so many to choose from. Well, the first thing that came to mind when you asked the question, I'm going to bring it on back to Dad. Being out on Long Island when I was a kid, with my dad, just playing baseball, him hitting me fungos. There was this huge grass airstrip, like a landing strip for little planes out on this sort of farm area where we were spending time. And we went out on that airstrip. There'd be like one plane a week that landed there, and you could see it circling overhead. You could hear it. So it's like we could be out there playing, and it was totally safe, and the people who owned the land were chill with that. And I guess being young enough that there was still a chance that I was going to be a Major League Baseball player, there's a certain nostalgia to, when all your hopes and dreams are still alive, right? Not to get all like dark and depressing here, but yeah, just being that age and being convinced that I was going to be a major leaguer and being out there in nature with my dad, hitting and catching balls. You can take all the milestone home runs and meeting players and being on TV and catching balls dropped from helicopters and whatnot. But I think ultimately it just comes down to being a kid playing ball with my dad.
Awesome. Well, that's about all the time we have for today, but thank you for all of your submissions. And Zack, thank you so much for taking the time out.